Warning, the video you're about to see for YouTube disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, I welcome you to today's video. Once again, we'll be looking at the Iceberg video. The theme of today's Iceberg is, as the title says, obscure myths and legends in cartoons, and we will be also talking about some lost tales. This is a huge compilation of them. Today I will try to do my best to explain everything listed on the Iceberg, and if the entry isn't based on a cartoon but rather a theory, I will also give you an example about it and try to explain it to you so you get a good understanding of the theory. And for some things on the Iceberg, I will try to debunk them if they're real or not. So, just to explain, if you're not familiar with Iceberg videos, the top of the iceberg layer are things that are probably more or less known, and as we dive into deeper waters, or better to say deeper layers, we will encounter more and more obscure and dark things. One more thing is, YouTube is pretty harsh with these themes, and I'm forced to use censored language as some of the parts will be blurred to not violate the YouTube policy. So, make yourself a coffee, sit back, get comfy, and let's start with this video. Just one more thing, I listed every entry in the description as a timestamp so you can easily navigate through them, or if you're watching this video in parts. Typically, lost episodes are written by the author about an unaired or missing episode of the television show. Often are the episodes made just by one part of the team that worked on the series. The episodes are mostly described as crude, low budget in appearance and disturbing nature, and they are often have different subject matter from the original show. Themes of that are death, murder, torture, suicide, and depression. To give you an example, let's talk about a Mouse episode from Mickey Mouse. It is a re-released episode, or better to say loop, made in the 1930s. Mickey is walking past 6 buildings, but there was an odd thing. After 30 seconds it cuts to black and everybody thought it was the end of the short clip, but the video was 9 minutes long. At around 6 minutes the piano starts playing ominous music and ends up with Mickey having a weird look. We heard some grunts and crying noises in the background. His face was more and more deformed, with colors starting to appear. It's believed that a guard found this tape in the studio named Real Suffering is not known. Workers who tried to share this video were caught and fired from their job, but the real video should be online. Now, it would be odd that a guard found this video, but hey, I am not quite sure that this entry is true, but I'll let you to decide. Coma theories that suggest that certain cartoons are portrayed in the main character's head. The most popular would be about Ash from Pokemon. The theories are mostly going in deep. This one provides also with some evidence. The theory is based on the first episode of Pokemon, where Ash falls off his bike and ends up in a hospital. So the reason Ash didn't grow up is that his whole adventure isn't real. That's why the government is also functioning normally and letting such world exist where everything is fine, more or less. The fantasy also explains why every time he enters a new region, no one has ever heard of him, despite his conquests. It goes pretty deep on how the people in Ash's life are basically his feelings and urges and how they are represented, but honestly we need to cut it here because this is a pretty deep rabbit hole to dive in, but I could make a separate video just on this if you want. So, like the last one on this list, this theory is about that the series is set in purgatory. The short explanation of purgatory, if you're not familiar, is, according to the Catholic religion, a place of purification before entering heaven. So the most popular theory is based on Ed, Edd and Eddy. It says that the children come from different eras, and that's why the year of the show is really hard to pinpoint down. The theory explains every character, of course, but I will go with Rolf for this video. Rolf is from the 20th century. His family moved to the Peach Creek to establish a farm on its land, but Rolf died around 1903, where his family's farm animals stamped him to death. This was the supposed reason as to why he has only 1 cow, 1 goat and few pigs and a few chickens. Not enough animals to cause the fatal thing that happened to him in the afterlife. If you wanna believe this or not, it's up to you. I'm not so convinced about this story, but hey, it's on the list. Now here comes a fun one. You probably saw somewhere already that the Simpsons predicted a scenario that happened in real life. The premise of this story goes so far that people think that the government and powerful people are using all sorts of media to control the masses. And as the Simpsons are so popular, they are using the cartoon to desensitize people to changes that will eventually happen. So when certain things happen, like the Trump election, Simpsons already predicted it and planted that thought in people's minds. Let's say like a soft brainwash. Well, do I believe this is true? Probably not, at least not for The Simpsons, because they are a long-running series and it's no wonder they predicted some things, let's say, but some of them predictions were somehow pretty accurate. Like I already said, the Trump election, Lady Gaga performed at the Super Bowl, and so on. Clockman is a small adventure of a man who watched this show 20 or 30 years ago and he remembers to be really scared. Now, why did this post get so many attraction? Now, he used a Windows Paint image to try to recreate the happening in the cartoon so he can post it online and maybe someone Cracks, or better to say, The Crack Monster, is an animated show that was featured on the Sesame Street and was first aired in 1975. Now this is a fun theory. So it goes that every Pixar movie was connected and that all the characters live in the same universe. This is because the movies had cross references. There is a whole site with timelines dedicated to this story and it's really a great one, to be honest. It was really fun to research for it. Now, in the movie Brave, Merida uses magic to transform her mother into a bear. This magic is why animals and objects behave like humans. Magic was utilized by witches who mysteriously vanish through the wooden door. Eventually the magic from the Will of the Whispers would lead to birth of the superheroes in 1950s, or better to say the Incredibles. So superheroes maintain the order in the world, but Buddy, a wannabe superhero, wanna use the high-tech zero-point energy. Eventually we see that toys started to absorb and draw their powers from the zero-point energy. And this explains how in the 1990s the toys in Toy Story are alive. And so on and so on. So, jumping to the next. So, to explain you what a Mandela effect is, it's an event that occurred in the past and people remember it differently that it actually happened in reality. The Mandela effect was based on Jason Mandela, who died in the 1980s. At least many people remember it that way, but he actually died in 2013. The Mandela effect also occurs in cartoons. One popular is, does Pikachu's tail have a black end? He doesn't have a black tail end. Or does the witch in the Snow White says, mirror mirror on the wall? Well, that's also wrong because she says magic mirror on the wall. Fun stuff, am I right? Now, the first layer is finished, so let's dive a bit deeper. Sandy represents pride, as she has no regards for others. Squidward is pure wrath. He has hatred for everyone around him. Patrick Stars represents sloth, which means laziness, because he doesn't put any effort in anything in his life and sleeps most of the time. Mr. Krabs represents obviously greed, as he only cares about money and material objects. He often has no regards for others, and Plankton represents envy, which is obvious if you watch one episode of SpongeBob. He has a desire to have something he doesn't have, not willing to improve on himself, or better to say, his recipe. So, there we have it. Kennel Co starts with a post from SkyleHale033, where he asks, does anyone remember this kids show? It was called Kennel Co. I must be around 6 or 7. I never found a reference to it anywhere, so I think it could be on a local station around 71 or 72. I lived in Ironton at the time. I don't remember which station, but I do remember it was a weird time, like 4 p.m. There is a section about how they found the name and so on, but I won't bother you with that. Let's talk about why this is actually creepy. It's a girl who wanted to be a pirate, so she finds a ship that talks to her. As the budget wasn't very big, the ship switched from a wooden to a doll-like puppet as he talks. A creepy thing about the boat is that he often says to the little girl is that you need to go inside, with an odd voice and the camera angle zooming to the boat's face. But the most horrific was the villain puppet called the Skin Taker. Now, the name is based on a thing he actually does. Just to warn you. He was a skeleton with brown hair, made with huge glasses, and his hat and clothes were made of children's skin. He had an odd mouth moment when he talked to the girl, and the girl asked, "Why is it so?" He answered, looking straight to the camera, "To grind your skin." The guys had a debate on the cartoon, talk about having a nightmare about the show, where the other guy says that wasn't a nightmare, but a real episode. Finally, Mike Painter 65 replied he visited his mother in a nursing home and asked if she remembers him watching Candle Cove. She replied with, "That was really odd." Because when he was a child he used to say that he's gonna watch Candle Cove and turn the TV on static and watch it for 30 minutes straight. Candle Cove has a cult following now and even spawned recreations of the cartoons if you wanna check out. But a really good creepypasta, in my opinion. So Disney subliminal messages is a pretty big topic to dive into, but to give you a general idea about it, it's about writers sneaking mostly adultly jokes into the Disney movies and cartoons. Walt Disney was frozen. Many people believe that after he died in 1966, he was frozen, which is at least one of the rumors that spread around the time of his death. People believe he was frozen after his death so that he could be later resurrected. But the theory goes that his body was under the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in Disneyland. But not only that, they made the movie Frozen only for the reason when people started to searching for Walt Disney Frozen, the movie will pop up instead of the articles. The rumor also stated he will be resurrected in 2021, which obviously didn't happen, at least not publicly. Hey, who knows? The fun fact is that his body was actually cremated. But let's be real, this is just a theory and a rumor, nothing more. This is an urban legend about a kid on a cruise ship who thought he saw a pineapple in the sea and jumped off the bridge. This happened in 2002. Because of that, the show should be cancelled. But this is just a legend as far as my research goes. There aren't any names listed, I presume this is some kind of dark humor. Yet another SpongeBob entry. It's an about episode where SpongeBob and Patrick are using cuss words. The episode upset many parents. Of course, they didn't use real cuss words, they were censored by dolphin noises. But still, the intention was clear. Nickelodeon wanted the voice actors to use substitute words. It felt very weird, so they asked to use real cuss words and they eventually approved them. The original episode of the uncensored episode lies somewhere deep inside the archives. Even though there were many fans' recreations of this episode. I love this theory, it's so fun, but it has some evidence to prove it. So Shaggy and Scooby are two stoners. Now, if you think about it, they're always hungry, they live in a van. Of course, there are a few things more to mention about this, but I'll leave it here. By the way, did you know that Shaggy was in a band? This is one of my favorite films ever. The Lion King was released in 1994. This entry is about how Lion King copied a lot of stuff from the 1960s anime series Kimba. There are strong evidence that suggests that. Both follow the story of a lion cub whose father was killed. The enemy lions look very familiar to the famous fighting scene on the cliff. I mean, Simba and Kimba also look very familiar and they both have similar names. By the way, if you didn't know, Simba on Swahili means lion. By the way, the producer of Kimba stated even if some shots are very similar, and some parts of the story also, he would be honored if they copy it, and they didn't press any charges. But of course they denied everything and believed that Lion King was the original. So the second layer is done, so let's proceed to the third. Storyboard jam is a storyboard that is often passed around different members of the production crew of a cartoon, often resulting in rather offensive depictions. Production crews are said to have used them very often to relieve tensions while working on a project. In 1998 they made a short episode called Incredible, in which Tomika gives Angelica dog food to eat, which is kind of funny, but there is also a but. They have shown the episode to the director animator, who thought it wasn't that funny, and he made his episode, which went a bit overboard. In his episode, Stu comes home and starts to abuse his family and saying very inappropriate things to his daughter. The episodes that the creator Russell created were going on for some time, and each episode was more disturbing than the last one. Some episodes were about some things you should do, at least not in your family. I hope you know what I mean. But the same guy leaks also one of the scripts, like he was proud of something. I'm not quite sure why would he leak it besides that point. If you wanna check it out, there's a script floating somewhere online if you're interested. It's an episode called Special Ed, which became too real to quote it, which kind of went in the opposite direction of the show and it was never made, so the idea of the episode was quickly dropped and forgotten. Kalarta's style is a certain style of cartoons you probably saw but you didn't recognize it. They are teaching it in the art school in California. It produced many popular cartoons over the years. Most popular would be Adventure Time or Steven Universe. It's a very simplistic style of cartoon, where the characters have bean-shaped heads with bright smiles and wide eyes. The trend started in 2010. Many people just wrote the style as a lazy art style. I'm not a fan, but that is just my opinion. You can always state yours. Finally a Pokemon entry. So, Computer Warrior Porygon is the 38th episode on the long-running series. The episode is beaten to death with videos and articles over the years, but if you don't know what it's about, let me clear it up for you. It's an episode about where Pikachu used a lightning attack on incoming missiles and that led to 4 seconds bright flashes on the TV screen. It caused around 700 people to have epileptic seizures and even vomiting. Pokemon wasn't aired for 4 months in Japan as a result of that scene. There was supposed to be an English version where the effects were less bright, but the Japanese government banned the episode from being broadcast. Also, that was the last time we saw Porygon in the series because they want people to not remember it. I think Porygon was featured in one of the movies shortly, but besides that, he wasn't on the series anymore. Pretty crazy stuff when you think about it. This theory is that this cartoon is inspired by a schizophrenic girl's diary. This one is a bit dark. The theory is based on a Russian girl who lived with her parents, which separated when she was little, and she was living with her mother, which didn't pay any attention to her. After a while, gives a birth to her stepbrother, which is hyperactive, and her other brother was mentally handicapped. Soon, she started to think that her brother's starting to go on an adventure and tells her stories to mom. Because of that, the mother takes the girl to a therapist which claimed she has schizophrenia. The poor girl started to take stronger and stronger medication and started to write all the stories in her diary. After she committed suicide, her mother sold her diaries to Disney. Well, some people have a big imagination, but this is pretty false, because the writer stated there isn't any story like that involved with this cartoon. But that's what you get with your creepypasta. Crazy and dark theories. Who doesn't love them? Kablum episode is about the episode of the show Kablum which is missing. A user added this episode on the website guideontv.com in the early 2000s. This episode should be a goodbye episode. People think because the series was very popular at the time, this episode was dropped, but eventually it's again proven fake by the creator of the show. However, some people claim that they have seen it, so a Mandela effect happened. This refers to Toho, a Japanese studio that sued the creators of Rugrats because they made an episode where a reptile happened to destroy a city, and the reptile resembles Godzilla, which of course was just a parody of Godzilla. Disney lost the rights to Tarzan. It's due to the fact he wasn't anymore in the Kingdom Hearts games. The games were Disney characters mixed in with Square Enix characters. People believe this is because they didn't have the right to put Tarzan in the first game. The original creator sued them, which ended up with Tarzan not being featured in any other game. But this landed all short. Owns the rights to their version of Tarzan since the 90s. And he wasn't included in the game just because people complained it was a bad level design in the first Kingdom Hearts game. Dragon Ball IF is a rumor that was created by a guy called David Franco, in which he claimed that Dragon Ball IF is a saga that followed GT. He drew even a Super Saiyan 5 Goku, which was briefly mentioned in the GT saga. A site was tricked to post this image, being misled that the picture of the AF saga was real. But before the site found out about it, the news spread like wildfire in the Dragon Ball community. So, one more layer is completed. I hope you're enjoying the video, because we are only halfway there. The Drowner is the 37th episode of the season 3 of the amazing world of Gumball. It is the 113th episode overall. This episode is about Gumball wishing his family and friends to go away. Suddenly his wish became true. He was left empty in the city. After going out, he saw a dark mist going around and eating everything around. This is kind of dark for a kids show, but the original show should be even darker, the writers say, pinpointing to but there wasn't any hard evidence to prove that. But in the end, of course, it was only his hallucinations, and Gumball wakes up. I don't know how many people are familiar with Angelica Anaconda, but the time I was writing the script for the video, I remember I also watched it as a kid. Now the story of this entry caused a divorce. Angela has a cross episode with Digimon. At the time when Digimon was at its peak, nobody was happy about this episode. The 4chan user posted how his parents were divorced over this episode because he wanted to see the new movie and begged them to take him to the theater. When they arrived, he was very disappointed because he thought he would watch a Digimon movie, as far as I can tell, but he was greeted by Angelica running in a Digimon suit. He started crying. Mom and Dad got in an argument. Dad throws the popcorn, goes out to his car, gets into a car accident at a parking lot and drives off. The next month his parents were divorced. Crazy story, am I right? David Hasselhoff in Cyberchase. Cyberchase is a long-running kids show on PBS. This is about tweet where it stated that one of the character's voice actors would be replaced by David Hasselhoff, which wasn't true and the tweet was quickly deleted. This is about the final episode of Dungeons & Dragons, which had 27 episodes and it was aired between 1983 and 1985 on CBS. The final episode wasn't there. The title was Requiem, because many of the parents complained that the show was too violent and should be stopped from airing. There is only a script release of this episode, but the final episode was recreated by a fan in 2020. SpongeBob has a spotlight on every layer so far. Now, let's talk about the adult party cartoon. In 2003, Spike TV asked Stephen Hillenburg to create a SpongeBob SquarePants adult spin-off series, similar to the Ren and Stimpy Adult Party cartoon, but he refused. So sadly we didn't see SpongeBob Go Wild TV series. This entry is about a hoax about the ending of the movie, where we could see two stickmen, one named Uncle Roger and the other Mommy, having fun time. This hoax was fast debunked, as you can just watch the movie and see it isn't there, but the clip went viral. The initial author of the fake scene entered a digital art contest where they needed to put X-rated Easter eggs into kids' movies. That sounds like fun, am I right? One more layer is done. Prepare yourself for the next one. Hope you're ready because the layers are getting a bit more obscure. This is about an anime that started a whole search party over the internet. It started with one post on 4chan posted in 2015, where they discussed what is the most disturbing thing they saw on the dark web. One user mentioned and described Saki Sanobashi. It is an anime from the 1980s or 1990s. The name is paired with Go for a Punch. The user described the anime like this: some weird anime about naked girls stuck in a large bathroom without doors, having a debate about never getting out of the room. After losing hope, everything goes downhill. They just started screaming and yelling. Then they all commit suicide, either by smashing their heads on the floor or scratching their necks to bloody pieces. Pretty disturbing. But here comes the fun part. After a dozen of people started to look for this lost media, a certain Reddit user stated he created the post under a false name just for the sake of trolling. As he cannot prove it was really him, nobody knows. Are both posts just trolling, or is there really a show called Saki Sanobashi? But many people are still searching for this show. Pink Morning Cartoon is about a video series posted on YouTube by a channel called 𝙀𝙭𝙥𝙡𝙦𝙤𝙤. Because of the mysterious nature and weird clips, people started to be interested if the clips are actually from real cartoons. The owner of the channel can't vouch for its credibility, but he can say it was on Columbia's public access at 4:30 in the late 90s. He says it's supposed to be a religion-based show for children, and that any creepiness is unintentional. The search narrowed it down to a network called WinJLP. This network aired religious contents aside from old cartoons. The TV station was owned by a pastor and songwriter by the name Ella Flowers. She sadly passed away at the time of the search for more info about the tapes. But her daughter was happy that people reached out. She was very happy to see people are still interested in her mother's works. And she said some of the clips that were saved, because the cousins of Ella stole the original tapes and probably wanted to sell them. After not succeeding to sell the tapes off, they probably destroyed them. Of course, this is a deeper rabbit hole to dive into, but I try to keep it somehow compact for you, okay? Let's go to the next one. This is a rumor about Barney being based on a guy from 1930s who raped and killed children. But the rumor wasn't true, because the creator stating she based the story of Barney off her likeness of stuffed animals, and she wondered what would be like if they come alive. So thanks to God, Barney's image wasn't ruined. This was a scare-off tactic from Adult Swim to scare off children who were up too late, so they scared them off to not watch adult-oriented stuff on Adult Swim. That's it, let's move on. Hey Arnold was a cartoon I liked to watch as a kid, but I know I'm not the only one. So this entry is about a psychologist looking a closer look at Lila, and after his examination he determines that she was sexually abused as a child, probably by her mother. There were also some tapes floating around where he explains that, but I think this is a bit over the top, because the characters weren't made with that thought in the background. I mean, if we take a look at many other characters we love, we could have a huge debate on how the history looked like. 𝙀𝙭𝙥 was an American TV network for kids. This entry refers to a video published by the YouTuber called 𝙀𝙭𝙥𝙡𝙀𝙥𝙀, where he detailed the last moment of the network. These last moments happened on February 27 in 2021. After the last episode aired, there was a sign by 𝙀𝙭𝙥. For the sake of goodbye, the picture had a lot of cartoons characters on it, but under the characters was a telephone number stating "Save 𝙀𝙭𝙥 now." Now they stated they also need $2,500 to save the channel until midnight. Now they did one more thing, and that's every few minutes they shot one of the characters on the screen. After all the characters faded to black, there was a statement from 𝙀𝙭𝙥 where they basically stated, "Due to selfishness from our viewers, we are forced to shut down." And the last sentence was, "This is your fault." Plus, under the 𝙀𝙭𝙥's logo appeared a text that stated, "Thanks for nothing." What a way to go out. Now, I don't need to tell you that this was fake, but just to state it, I mean, do you really think $2,500 would be enough to save a whole network channel? This entry is, like the title said, about the cartoon Dragon Tales, about the episode Too Hot for TV. The creators supposedly make a special episode for adults. It has bad language and it breaks the fourth wall. This was only mentioned on the site tvtroops.org, but there isn't any evidence because the discussion was deleted from the site. So I think it's fake, but hey, you never know. So this myth is pretty straightforward. The belief is that Cinderella and Tinkerbell are both based on Marilyn Monroe, but the creators stated this isn't true because Tinkerbell is based on the actress Margaret Carey and Cinderella on the actress Helen Stanley. The last entry on the layer 5 is about the subreddit named Tip My Tongue, where the user named DeadUser00 described a show posted on Nickelodeon. It was about puppets made from animal bones. They also showed animal bones in glass cages, using them to fuse them into some weird looking monsters, so to say. To give it even more edge, it was black and white and had no dialogue, just music. After the post, many people stated that they remembered the movie, but after connecting the network and searching the archives, they didn't find anything resembling to that. But there is a video called Butcher's Hook which resembles the description, but the creator wasn't too happy to give any further details about the movie. So that's why some people think it was only a troll post. To the next layer. Layer 6 starts strong with another SpongeBob entry. The myth is that a Brazilian broadcast used the brown note while Squidward playing the clarinet. Now, because the brown note doesn't. This is about an episode of Tom and Jerry created in 1956. That has a pretty dark tone compared to the rest of the show. You probably saw this episode. It was the one where Tommy tried to impress a girl who fell in love with another guy and married him. And Tom was really sad and didn't take the whole situation well because of this. Jerry tried to help Tom because they are somehow also friends. But also in that episode, Jerry meets a girl which he eventually breaks up with, and Jerry ends up in the same situation as Jerry. At the end of the episode, they're both sitting on train tracks and suddenly you can hear the train coming. People believe this is the last episode of the original Tom and Jerry, but this wasn't true because the true ending was in 1967. The episode called Chance to Dream was the final episode of the original Tom and Jerry. Also a note, this episode wasn't aired so much because of the dark nature, which is quite expected. This entry is about a myth that two of the animators created an adult scene between Mickey and Minnie Mouse. So why did they do that? Well, that's supposed to be a birthday present for Walt Disney in 1936. Even if Walt was amused by the clip, but after watching he asked who did it, and the two guys were fired from their job and the tapes were destroyed. How do we know this isn't yet another myth? Well, because it's featured in the Walt Disney biography. but the whole biography got really much criticized, so we will never know if this is true or not. There wasn't much info on this, but it's supposed to be about an animation series that was supposedly created in 1987. It's about a girl who is a fashion model during the day, and at the night she's basically a female version of James Bond. Please be warned, if you consider that a warning, that Tiffany Blake is also actress who makes adult movies. So, you will have fun researching this topic, if you decide to dive into it. Derp was created as the animators make a mistake in the animation of Derp, so the result was she was cross-eyed, and the fandom named her, created a full backstory and personality for her. The show only later made her into an official character. There should also be an episode even called A Derp in Life, a speechless episode about her, but I'm not quite sure if this was just a rumor. However, the episode doesn't exist. Well, this is a fun one. This is like the title says, Goku and Frieza going to KFC. After Goku defeats Frieza in a fight, he goes to KFC to eat. Not only because he likes KFC, but Frieza hates it. It is because Frieza is a Taco Beller. And I didn't make that turn up, it was written in the plot like this. Obviously, this is fake. I can't imagine to be it real, because the budget for this was too low. They didn't make a movie but a DVD, which somehow got lost, but people have seen it already. And yeah, the whole thing about people claiming to see something which probably doesn't exist is really fun to me, but hey, we already covered the Mandela effect. The theory states that Don Bluth hates cats. This theory is even published in Chicago in 1986, stating he's anti-cat, but Don left it off because it was a rumor and says he has 3 cats at home and he loves them all. The Road to El Dorado was released in 2000, which featured 2 guys called Miguel and Julio, who tried to reach the lost city of El Dorado, which is the lost city of gold, if you didn't know, but you probably played Uncharted and know this story. The theory claims that the 2 guys are too close. Even if they show clear interest into women in the movie, the fact that they are so close indicates that they are at least bi. Some people claim they were supposed to be lovers in the original script, but this wasn't proven. This details of course, but this was proven. Many of you probably knew who Kurt Cobain is. He was the lead singer of Nirvana before sadly committing suicide. The rumor goes that Kurt Cobain loved the show Renny and Stimpy, and he even made a song for it. It was 1999 where he struggled as a musician, and the song was apparently cheaply made. But Kurt was so proud that he sent the tape to the producer, but he thought it was garbage and threw it away. So we'll never know if this was actually true. Like Mickey and Minnie's adult tape, we have another one. Apparently in 1938, the creator of Popeye threw a party in Miami to welcome the animators from New York, and this video was a thank you video he made. So to summarize the clip, Popeye flew to Miami and Betty gave him a warm welcome. And after a while, Popeye got tired and used spinach to get back into the game. Why am I even describing this? What you should know is that the clip circulated in 1980s in adult theaters, apparently. But nobody can prove that, as the tape was lost in 1930s. During World War II, the Disney studios were commissioned by the USA government to do various propaganda shorts. One of them was named Chicken Little. not to be confused with Disney's later 2005 CGI animated film of the same name. It was released in 1943. It tried to warn the American audiences to not believe the propaganda related to the enemies. It revolves around Foxy Loxy, a fox that uses advice from a psychology book to lure community and to successfully eat one by one. To be less subtle in the message, Foxy Loxy would actually read a copy of a book which I won't say on YouTube, but you can probably guess it, instead of a psychology book. The whole episode is online if you wanna watch it, so let's go to the next entry. Many people in Brazil claim they watched the episode 245 of Dragon Ball when it was interrupted by a report about 9/11. But the episode 245 of Dragon Ball didn't air until 2002, so this is once again a Mandela effect. This is a common belief somehow that Ash Pikachu is a girl. The strongest evidence is that female Pokemon didn't have any effects on Pikachu. But this isn't of course true because of the simple fact that Pokédex says male and female Pikachu have different shaped tails, and Ash Pikachu is shaped like a male. So there you have it. And this leads us to the end of the 7th layer of this iceberg. One more to go and we are done. Mark Crook was a well-known animator and voice actor on many Adult Swim shows. He died from unknown causes, and there was a rumor that he left behind a treasure trove of drawings, artworks and various memorabilia. Crooker had apparently an artwork book in a forbidden folder. Its content are unknown, but one of his drawings is believed to be a Tom and Jerry version but for adults, which was also confirmed by many of his friends. Uncle What is a short cartoon produced in 1964. The short begins with images of Walt Disney at various ages, followed by a slow pan across a graveyard full of headstones of Perry the squirrel and her family. The next shot scene is that of very early style Mickey and Minnie Mouse, followed by racist and toilet humor. There is also a scene where Goofy is, I'm not quite sure I can say this on YouTube, but he was managing girls, let's say. You probably know what I'm talking about. The final images seen that the 7 dwarfs of Snow White are gathering around Mickey Mouse and worshipping him, aside from many other disturbing scenes. For a time, a rumor circulated the short was actually produced by Disney employees in 1954, but this was quickly debunked since the previous short, as previously mentioned, contains reference to the 1957 film Perry. This probably left many kids in wonder what they saw. At 9:30 New Jersey in 2007, they somehow aired an adult movie instead of Handy Manny. This was the last thing parents expected to see on a Disney Channel. A Reddit user stated, "From the name, I assumed they played something called Handy Mandy by mistake rather by Handy Manny." I found this so funny. I'm sorry. The best thing is they don't know how it happened in the first place. Television started in the United Kingdom in 1936, but just 3 years later, as World War II was about to start, Britain pulled the plug on the television for the next 7 years. The last thing people saw was Mickey Mouse. On September 1, 1939, anticipating the outbreak of war, the BBC television series stopped broadcasting that the waves of the broadcast would act as homing signal for enemy's bombers to London. The show was played again in the entry picking up where the broadcast left in 1939. Mickey was the last star on TV before the war and the first seen on the TV when the war ended. And the last entry of today's video is from a subreddit we already talked about, The Tip of My Tongue. It's about a broadcast interference on Nickelodeon in the early 2000s, where a user from Reddit stated he saw a weird black and white short clip. This video was about a dozen of people walking in a zombie-like state to a hamster wheel. The user stated he watched it for 5 minutes. He stated he saw a group of people walking naked in a zombie-like state over the plain fields and going to a hill where there was... This is just a creepypasta, and it isn't true. Even many people once again claim to saw also the same thing he saw back in the day, but I'm guessing this isn't true. And finally guys, we are done. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I could show you few myths and legends you didn't know in the cartoon world. This was a really fun video to make. I also thank you for showing me support on the last video. It helps the channel a lot, and if you wanna see me more videos like this, comment down below. Also, you can comment on your favorite creepypastas that didn't end up on the list, so other people can read it. And yeah, that's all from me. Thanks once again for sticking to the end, and I see you in the next one. Bye.